Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, March 12th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect a high of 82 degrees under mostly cloudy skies in San Antonio today. According to the National Weather Service, San Antonio will see some rain this weekend as a mild cold front moves through, bringing a high chance of precipitation to the area. It's still nearly 4 months away, but there's reason to hope that this year's 4th of July celebrations will be something like normal. You know, like before COVID-19 hit. President Joe Biden pledged in his first primetime address Thursday night to make all adults eligible for vaccines by May 1st and raise the prospect of independence from this virus by the 4th of July. Keep an eye on the Express News Taste Teams page today as our 52 Weeks of Food Truck series continues. If you missed any previous entries, head over to expressnews.com to catch up. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. When the FBI arrested Gonzales County resident Jalen Christopher Molina in September on a charge that he conspired to provide material support to the terrorist organization ISIS, it seemed incredible to some that a young man who backed then-President Donald Trump and his America First mantra had been online with other ISIS supporters discussing plans for violent attacks on American targets, including the White House and Trump Tower. Court records show he was being recruited as an ISIS operative by Christopher Sean Matthews of South Carolina, who held chat sessions with at least 20 other suspected ISIS supporters on encrypted online platforms that the FBI had infiltrated. Head over to expressnews.com to read the latest from Guillermo Contreras as he explores how it all happened. After buying more than 4.5 million computers and hotspots for students over the last several months, Texas education officials have a new goal: making free at-home internet available to every public school student beyond the pandemic. The ambitious target, laid out in interviews and statements by education leaders, suggests Texas plans to ride momentum building across the nation to close the so-called digital divide. The issue has come into stark view as many students shifted to online-only classes when the novel coronavirus began sweeping across the country last March. The plan would require hundreds of millions of dollars in local, state, and federal funds each year. The payoff, however, could prove monumental for children and their families. Brandon Miner walked out of the job fair at the soon-to-open Estancia del Norte Hotel on Wednesday morning, saying he was more than a happy man. His 6 months of joblessness were nearly over. He began his job hunt in September when he was laid off from his operations manager job at the Hotel Indigo San Antonio Riverwalk amid the COVID-19 pandemic. He had worked in San Antonio's hospitality industry for 5 years. Quote, "You apply for many jobs in different places, but there are a lot of people out there with similar qualifications," he said. "There are just so many people unemployed, it's hard to compete." Find out why there's hope for the industry after a terrible 2020 in Randy Diamond's latest article. Ezekiel "Zeke" Mendoza regularly received 4 to 5 hours of life-saving dialysis treatment each Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. That is, until last month's winter storm led to widespread power and water outages that disrupted his schedule. Mendoza's dialysis treatment was cut to 2 hours per visit in the immediate aftermath of the storm. The following week, on February 22nd, one of Mendoza's sons found him on his Southside home, lying down and not breathing. Paramedics were called out but were unable to revive the 61-year-old, a trustee in the Harlandale Independent School District. Now, in a lawsuit, Mendoza's widow and 3 sons are seeking to hold CPS Energy responsible for his death. The family seeks more than $1 million in damages. It's been a year since the World Health Organization declared the spread of the coronavirus had become a pandemic. In that time, almost 200,000 people in Bexar County have contracted the virus. 366 new cases were reported Thursday. 5 more deaths were reported, pushing the total since the pandemic was declared to 2,861. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside of your Express News subscription. Texas health officials and Governor Greg Abbott say the federal government is using outdated population figures to calculate the number of COVID-19 vaccines sent to Texas, an inaccuracy that has potentially cost the state millions of doses. A San Antonio man who sued H-E-B, alleging a cashier struck him with an English cucumber, won't be rolling in lettuce. Joe Albert Lopez dropped his lawsuit against the San Antonio grocer, saying he no longer desires to proceed with his claims. An independent market monitor for the state said Thursday only a fraction of the $16 billion that was overcharged by the state's grid operator as last month's winter storm subsided can now be recouped for consumers. The $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill, known as the American Rescue Plan Act, could be especially significant in Texas. Texas expected to receive $16.7 billion, with its cities and counties set to receive nearly $11 billion more. Before Governor Greg Abbott's order came into effect Wednesday, XTC Cabaret had been cited over a dozen times for violating local declarations. Officials eventually disconnected the Northside Club's power and water. That didn't seem to stop XTC Cabaret's operations, though. Democrats are slamming U.S. Rep. Dan Crenshaw for failing to timely disclose that he was trading stocks during the start of the pandemic, a violation of laws meant to prevent members of Congress from using their offices for profiteering. Beth Moore, a popular Christian author and Bible teacher in Texas, has decided to leave the Southern Baptist Convention as the largest coalition of Baptist churches in the U.S. wrestles with controversies about sexual abuse, race, and the role of women in ministry. Deep in the desert shrublands of the Devils River State Natural Area, Texas history was made. A landscape so harsh and so beautiful was the setting last week for the release of 2 black bears, the first from Texas to go through the rehabilitation process. Attorney General Ken Paxton made good on his threat to sue the city of Austin for requiring face coverings after the governor ordered that masks be strictly voluntary. The Public Utility Commission on Thursday named Adrian Brandt as Director of Accountability of the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. The PUC, which regulates the state's electric, telecommunications, water, and sewer utilities, also brought in former ERCOT Chief Operating Officer Brad Jones as a consultant. Governor Greg Abbott announced the state's reopening under the assumption that businesses and individuals could exercise personal responsibility without the threat of government enforcement. A no-holds-barred spring break in Galveston, with crowded bars, restaurants, and beaches, will test that theory. Less than 2 months into his presidency, Joe Biden's economic and social policy doesn't have a catchy and defining name like the New Deal or the Great Society. But his $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, or ARP, resonates with the ambitions of FDR and LBJ, writes the Express News editorial board. You can read the latest editorial over at expressnews.com. George Mendoza's journey to record shop ownership started as a 4th grader riding in his mom's 1977 Grand Prix. It had a leaky roof and only picked up AM stations, mostly Kono 860 oldies. The busted stereo ignited a lifelong love of music for Mendoza, who opened Friends of Sounds in a funky green building on the corner of Fredericksburg Road and West Ashby Place in 2016. Read his Q&A with Brandon Lingle in our latest story in partnership with Report for America. One of 5 single-family townhomes in the Clay Street Village development, the 3-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house has close to 2,400 square feet, plus a 2-car garage, backyard, and balcony. Richard Marini takes a look inside this King Williams area townhome. A 109-year-old San Antonio home, once restored from an unlivable condition, is back on the market. Check out the home at 310 Alamosa over at expressnews.com. Oyster bars are having their moment in the city. Mike Sutter has the 5 best over at expressnews.com. NBA trade rules might make it difficult for the Spurs front office to deal LaMarcus Aldridge. Players, meanwhile, vow to play on. The Spurs host the Orlando Magic tonight. Exactly 1 year later, Cole gets to finish it out. The Cougars faced Tatum for the UIL Class 3A State Championship on Friday after the 2020 title game was never played. Also today, Antonian is playing in a TAPS title game for the third season in a row, aiming for its second state championship in 3 years. And that's all for today. This was your Express Briefing for Friday, March 12th. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.